So how many podcasts have you done in your life?
You're throwing me into the fire right now. You give me talking points to work on, so this is good. We'll see how this goes. It might be kind of rough.
I didn't give myself talking points to either. And I find that makes the single best podcast I know how to make. There's a lot of people who have better podcasts than me. But one thing that's true of every episode of my podcast is there is nothing rehearsed. Just like the conversation you and I are about to step into. And I'll just warn you that probably every word that's been said so far is probably going to be on the podcast. So just know that it's on right now. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Normal 40 the podcast. My name is Lon Stroshani. I'm the founder of the Normal 40, and I've got a very special show for you today. I just never know who I am going to run into through the course of just what I do every day that leads me or impacts me or changes the trajectory of my life, or at the very least changes the perspective I have on the trajectory of my life. But every day, practically, I get to meet one of those people. And sometimes they're good enough to share their story here with us. For those of you tuning in with me as I record, and they help us navigate what I call the Normal 40 Highway. Today, I'm going to introduce you to my friend, Chris Bertrand. Now, to be fair, I've never met Chris in person. And up until this call, I didn't realize that he and I had never, ever had a phone conversation before. This call represents the first time that he and I ever in real time hear one another's voice. But it wasn't the first time we communicated. It wasn't the first time we interacted. And it certainly wasn't the first time I became aware of his story. Chris has been a part of my community for more than a year. And he's been a part of our journey, following what I do, being just part of the people who follow what goes on at Normal 40 for more than 4 years. He was an early person here. When I separated from my job in 2022, he was one of the first people to come and just follow along. We didn't engage a lot. We didn't share a lot of emails, but I knew he was there. He would hop on posts, and on occasion, rare occasion, I would get a note from him. So when he joined my community last year, he was at this place where we all get to. He would trade what he's got, but he wasn't sure what he was going to trade it for. So he joined my community called The Insider to just meet some people who are on this journey. And that's what the community exists for, to meet the people you're going to need for the next chapter of your life. And he came in and he was doing the work. Until one day we were talking about second resume. And second resume may or may not be something you're familiar with. For me, second resume is really serious work. Second resume tends to be the things in your life that you don't like to talk about that have made you exactly who you are. I can go to LinkedIn and I can look at everything you've got on LinkedIn, and I know what your first resume is. You've got it there. You've built it. You wrote it. You lived it. It's there for me to see in black and white. And by the way, it's what you want the world to know about you. It's what you want the world to know you are. But beneath all those words and those titles and those achievements and those recommendations are other things. There's hardship. There's loss. There's the things that you wanted to happen that didn't. Maybe there's a termination. Maybe there's an illness. Maybe there's a family struggle. Maybe there's marital problems. These are the things that I call a second resume. The things that you don't want the rest of the world to know about you, but sometimes they become so central to what's going on in your world that the world needs to know about them. But in almost every case, after you've endured them, after you've survived them, after you've come through the other side, those second resume things become the thing that build the platform you need. They give you the tools you need to have for the best journey of your life, for the best work of your life. Second resume. It's all the things you don't want to talk about that have made you ready for what the world needs you to do for the world next. Chris, in that call, in the insider call, when I was asking about second resume and we were going around the horn, having some conversation about what's on our second resume, what's the thing about us that we don't want other people to know? He swallowed hard and he said, well, on my second resume is something new. A few months ago, I was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And there's two types of colon cancer, the good kind and the bad kind. And in a nutshell, I don't have the good kind. And he had all of us immediately into his story, immediately into his second resume. And he had all of us immediately on his side. Chris wasn't sure what he wanted to do with this story. He wasn't sure how he wanted to navigate life with this story. He wasn't sure he wanted to share this story. But through the help of the people in the Insider and through some conversations about what this story means, what this second resume that he's been given, that he didn't ask for, he didn't want. This isn't the thing he said, oh, please let me have this so that I can help people. When we got down to it, what do you want to do with this? Because you've got options. You can do nothing and fight it. Fight like hell. And you're going to do that. We know it. And you can do that. But you've got an option. You can also share it. Share your story. Use it. Promote what you're going through, not from the sense of getting clients or customers. Promote it so that it helps somebody else going through the same thing. Give someone a place. Give someone to talk to. Give someone a reason to do something different. So I offered to him the opportunity to be in my podcast, to tell his story, to share his second resume, to make the decision that it's not something that, yes, he's going to fight it, but that he's not going to fight it alone. He's going to fight it in the open. And he's going to fight it in a way that maybe, just maybe, it gives other people perspective, hope, and the tools they need to navigate something hard. Or it gives them the nudge they need to go get a colonoscopy. For the next hour, you're going to get to hear me and Chris just ramble. A couple of dudes on a journey. A couple of dudes had never talked before this. You're going to get to hear Chris unwrap his second resume. You're going to get to hear him come out of his shell, to share his story, to talk about what's hard, to talk about what he's learned, to talk about how it's impacted his life, his marriage, his relationship with his kids, and what he's learned about a stage 4 cancer diagnosis. To say I admire Chris for making this decision is an understatement. I admire the heck out of him. I've learned, and I can't wait to share Chris's journey with all of you. Everyone, thanks for being here. Thanks for being part of my journey. I want you to meet my friend Chris. I want you to take some notes, and I want you to learn from him, and then I want you to reach out to him. Share it with a friend, because this is a message that matters. Your second resume is something that matters. Thanks for being here. I'm going to drop you right inside the podcast right now. I'll see all of you on the podcast. Okay, Chris and I are going to have a very intimate conversation, and we've never talked one-on-one. Here we go, man.
Always a first.
Let's just go back. I know you live in Iowa now. Just take me back to, where were you in the third grade? Just tell me what was going on in your world, where you were growing up, if you had just siblings, what your parents were up to, what was going on, man?
Yep. So I've grown up in Des Moines, Iowa area my whole life. Grew up in a suburb called Johnston. Went to high school there, graduated high school there. Actually, a little after third grade, my parents moved me to a private school in Des Moines for 5th through 7th grade. And then I ended up coming back to Johnston and finishing out my education at Johnston. But my dad, I've got a sister. She was 2 years younger than me, still is. My dad worked at John Deere. He was in management and often worked second and third shift. And my mom, she went to Drake University and studied to be a teacher and got in the teaching world and decided pretty quickly that teaching wasn't for her. So she did a lot of administrative stuff in different capacities with different organizations for her work life as well. Grew up a latchkey kid. Mom and dad were gone during the day. So during the summers, it was me and my sister. And we were considered, even though we were a suburb of Des Moines, we were considered where we lived out in the country. I lived out by a lake, not many houses, not many kids around us. So it was me and my sister and maybe 2 or 3 other dudes or girls. They're mainly dudes. and just ran the countryside, ran the lake, fishing, growing up doing that. The old stories about ringing the bell at night to come home for dinner, or when the street lights went off, you came home, and there wasn't many street lights out there, but you knew when they came on, you headed home.
I want you to tell me about the trouble you got into in middle school that you really are glad the statute of limitations are up for.
I was a pretty good kid. I didn't get in a lot of trouble. When my parents decided to send us to private school, it was a rough transition for me. My sister slid right in there, no problem. I was a dude coming in. Other dudes were, I don't know, curious about the new guy. There was one of the bullies, I would say, of the class. Just was on me all the time, and I just let it go. And one day out on the playground, he decided he pushed the wrong button, and we started throwing down. There was some trouble there. Then when I went back to Johnston in eighth grade in gym class, there was a kid. I don't know. He decided to test me, and again, I'm not a fighter. I'm more of a lover, not a fighter. Big teddy bear, and he threw a punch, and I threw back. We both ended up in the principal's office. He's the one that got in trouble. I did not. Those two things, I don't know that I wouldn't say that they defined me, but they stuck with me through life, just to not back down. I don't know. Like I said, I wasn't a fighter. So those were pretty defining moments in my life. And it was a rough time in my life too, because when I went back to Johnston, even though I grew up with those kids and continued in the extracurricular activities, baseball, basketball, and stuff, and played with all those kids, I found out after high school that I was a threat to them because I was a pretty good athlete and I was a threat to them. So it took me about a year to get past that. And then I got in with everybody and was pretty good and stayed out of trouble in high school, except for one little incident at a football game. I was with the wrong crowd and got caught with some alcohol and had to do some community service with that. So my dad always rode me hard, stay away from the drugs and alcohol. And I did for the most part. I was just with the wrong crew that night. And so that kind of shaped me for the next couple of years to stay out of trouble.
I got two follow up questions. In both the incidences of these altercations, one I think was roughly seventh grade, one was probably ninth grade ish. What were you said in both cases they were pushing your buttons. What buttons were they pushing?
Just teasing the new kid and just saying whatever to try and bring me down. And the first incident, it was a case of a couple guys. One of them was the ringleader. The ringleader and I just ended up tussling a little bit. And after that, after both incidents, people realized that I wasn't going to put up with the crap, and things got better after both incidents. Too bad it took throwing punches to do that, but I think I made my point.
The other observation I want to make, thank you for sharing that, Chris. The other observation I want to make is kids today. I can't believe I'm officially reached that age where I say terms like kids today. But you and I grew up very similarly. Man, I remember getting in a brawl. Look, I was not a very tough kid in a pretty small school in South Dakota. And I remember getting in a brawl, and myself and another kid ended up rolling around on the floor of the gym locker room. That sounds pretty bad. But, it was after a practice, and he started pushing my buttons, and honestly, I started pushing his. And when you know it, one thing leads to another, and pretty soon we're both sitting in the coach's office. The problem was he was the coach's kid. And so that didn't play out so well for me. But it's just this rite of passage that our generation went through where stuff like that just kind of happened. And going out and doing stuff on weekends just kind of happened, being unsupervised, doing stuff that you didn't get in trouble for only because you didn't get caught, not things that were malicious or to deprive someone or to take something from someone. It's just kind of in the name of testing boundaries and learning ourselves. And man, I think the generation that I'm raising really doesn't have that because of cell phones, because of our ability to know exactly where they're at, how fast they're riding their bike, if they're in a car. We can literally just big brother them all over the place to the point where they don't even have a chance to test themselves. You are testing at a young age your boundaries, what you would tolerate, where you would draw the line, where you would let yourself get pushed, and where you would say, no way, no more. Here we go. It's going down. And I think there's such incredible value in that. So after you return to Johnston, we'll jump ahead in the story a little bit more. Tell me about college and how you knew. So, spoiler alert, I'll tell people you spent 32 years in and around the healthcare industry, and I'll let you build out around that. But how did you know? When did it dawn on you that you were going to go down the path you eventually went down?
Yeah, so in high school, like I said, I played sports. I loved competing and I loved any type of sport. So I thought I was going to go to school and do sports journalism. And that was my plan when I graduated from high school. I went to a JUCO, played some baseball, got some your first line courses done through the JUCO, and then ended up at Iowa State. And I changed my mind. I didn't want to do the journalism thing. Athletic training piqued my interest. So I did observation at a sports medicine clinic here in Des Moines one summer and decided that was the route I was going to take. Spent the next couple years at Iowa State in the athletic training program. Um, Graduated, took my boards, passed my boards, and started in the physical therapy clinic working with patients in orthopedics, doing the physical therapy. And then in the afternoons, we were we'd go out to high schools, and I had a local high school that I was at all the time and be there for practice and all their games. So that's what got me started in healthcare. And I did that for the athletic training for 7, 8 years and started to have kids and decided I don't want to be at this high school is called Waukee. I don't want to be at Waukee watching everybody else's kids grow up and not be around for mine because the hours there, high school events, they go till 10, 11 o'clock at night. So I wasn't getting home till midnight and gone all day. So back to that first kind of internship that I did, a guy was with a national company now that had locations here in Des Moines, and he had a business development position open. And he called me and said, "Hey, I want you to apply for this. Are you interested in this?" So I did and got the job. And that's where my career in business development started in healthcare. So all along, I've been in healthcare, most of it in the business development side of things.
So, you started in business development and healthcare just immediately out of college.
I was doing the athletic training immediately after college for about
Okay.
7, 8 years. So
Okay.
I was 31 when I got into the business development side of things and started doing that.
What's your wife's name?
Heidi,
When did you meet Heidi?
high school.
Ah, tell me about
Yeah.
it.
It was the end of my junior year. She was finishing her freshman year at the same high school, and she was friends with my sister. They were in the same grade together. I had a couple girlfriends that year that just didn't work out, and one thing led to another. And I think my sister just kind of hooked us up that summer, and we started dating a little bit, and been at it ever since then.
So, you've been dating your wife since she was a freshman in high school.
Yes,
All right. That's pretty cool. And how many kids do you have?
two boys. One is
Two boys.
29, and he's the one that lives out in Florida with around you, and then the youngest is 26, and he lives in the Des Moines area.
Dude, I would have guessed you and your kids to be 10 years younger than you must be, but very cool. I want to talk just a little bit about your career in business development and healthcare. You did it for 32 years, so you were at it a long time. Tell me what you just loved, what kept you there, and what you loved about it.
The reason I got into healthcare as an athletic trainer is because I've got a helping heart and wanted to help people. And I was able to transition that over into the business development side of things, getting patients in, helping get patients in to see physicians. When I'm out in the community or in the rural hospitals, I'm out talking with physicians and administrators and nurses and what have you about our services, about our physicians and the programs that they offer. And so I developed those relationships with those folks, and they could call me and say, "Hey, man, we tried to get a patient in to see Dr. X and we couldn't get him in for 2 months. Can you help us out here?" And most of the time, I get them led to the right direction and get that problem solved. That's just one of the few things of helping people. But also, when I started at the Iowa clinic, we had a vascular access center that was getting started for the vascular surgeons. And basically, it allowed them to do access for people with diabetes when they go in and get their blood transfusions and stuff done. So we built that from the ground floor and built it into a multi-million-dollar business. And I was a big part of that because there was a lot of people that were a big part of it. There's doctors, nurses, clinical staff. But without me out there talking with the folks, they don't know that we have this access center and how we can help their patients. So the fun in building that and watching that grow was rewarding. Same thing with the sleep center. We built a sleep center and went from, they were doing it out of the hospital and went on a freestanding location and went from 80 referrals a month to over 600 referrals a month. Again, by going out and building those relationships that I had, people trusted me. Just seeing that happen was rewarding as well too. And to go out to the rural hospitals that are dying to get specialists to come to their hospitals and see patients instead of patients having to come to the big city, as they say, and have to deal with traffic to go see doctors, and to be able to line up some of our physicians to go out to these rural hospitals and see people there. The rural hospitals are probably one of my favorite things to work with because, man, they take anything you could offer them. And when you did, they were so grateful for everything that you did for them. Rural hospitals were a passion of mine, helping them out, grow their physician services and helping them and their patients.
What are you most proud of in a 32-year career in business development and healthcare?
That I was reliable and a trusted person. I hear that from people still after I've retired, telling me that I was just so great and helping them out on, not to beat my drum, but they didn't have a lot of people that did the things that I did for them.
Why
Again,
did you
just
do it? Why did you step up and lead those things and help the rural hospitals when others either didn't or wouldn't? Doesn't matter. It wasn't getting done. What about you drew you to that?
I would probably say when I was at the Iowa Clinic, we were some of the first local facilities that hired people like me to do that job. It was me and another gal that did that job, and hers focused mostly in the Des Moines area, and mine, I was in the Des Moines area, but the physicians that I was working with had rural outreach. So I think a lot of it at the beginning was because I was the only one that they were seeing coming out and helping them from the other organizations in the Des Moines area. And as the years went on, people started seeing what we were doing and started hiring folks like myself to do the same thing.
And what made you great at your job?
I followed up. I listened. I didn't talk. I listened to what they had to tell me. If there was a problem that they had that I could solve, I'd offer what we had to solve that problem. But I was a good listener and I was not a seller. I didn't try and sell something to somebody that they didn't need. And I followed up with stuff too. I didn't let stuff slide. If any of the administrators at the clinic weren't getting back to some of these rural hospitals or what have you, I was on them and copying them in on emails with the rural hospital to get them going. So I was pretty, I don't know what the word is that I want to use, but I didn't let things slide.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for listening to Normal 40, the podcast. If you're here, it's probably not an algorithm or an accident. If you're here, it's probably you. And if you're here, I want to invite you to try something else. 2 years ago, I launched a community called The Insider. And when I created it, I thought it was going to be a coaching community where I could come in and teach. But what it's become over the last few months is something radically different. It's a place where we hang out, where we help one another, where we support one another, where people come in really skeptical that there's really a group of people like us doing things like this, and really skeptical if there's anything out there that can be helpful to them. And what they find after only a few calls is that we're really here, we really show up, there really are people in your corner, and that if you lean into it, it can change your life. I'm inviting you to be an insider. It might be the best decision of your lifetime. Go to normal40.com and you'll find the insider, and I hope to see all of you on the inside. So let's fast forward the clock a little bit. You found Normal 40. So look, everybody listening is going to understand what Normal 40 is and understand that Normal 40 is this feeling. It's not about an age, it's about a feeling you get at some point in your journey. This feeling of being really proud of what you have and being really thankful for all that it's done for you. But at the same time, just literally simultaneously feeling like you've got another chapter. You've got a bigger story. You've got one more thing that you want to take on. And oftentimes it's hard to articulate it, what it is. So there's this place of kind of frustration and wonder, and it can be this really lonely place. But I want you to tell me at some point, not all that long ago, you found Normal 40 and you said, there's something here. What was going on for you professionally in the 6 months before you found Normal 40?
Yep. So I'll back the clock up a little bit back to when my wife and I got married and started having kids. I had lost both my parents at a young age. I was 25 when I lost my mom and 31 when I lost my dad. So they weren't around to help raise the boys. And that affected me. And we made the decision then that we were going to save hard so we could look at retiring with a goal of 55 years old because my mom was 50 when she passed and my dad was 56 when he passed. So I had always had that in my mind that let's get this, let's buckle down, let's save, work to retire at 55. So fast forward, I'm pushing 55, had a successful career. We did what we needed to do to retire at 55 if we wanted to. I was in a different job at this point, still doing business development that paid me well. I could do it in my sleep. I was good at it, but I felt this pulling as to if I'm going to keep working, or even if I retire, what can there's something out there that I could do part time that I can continue to help people, continue to use my knowledge that I've accumulated over my career. But what is that? Do I continue to work full time? Is it something that I don't get paid for and volunteer for? It was pulling me just like everybody else at the Normal 40. And I had seen you a couple years earlier on LinkedIn before you really got this thing going. And I think it was probably one of your first posts or videos that you had out there. It was probably a post back then, and I followed you the whole time and decided to join the group and came in there and said what I said. And then after a year, everybody comes in and says the same damn thing that I said the first time I was there. We're all in the same boat.
Do you remember
So
what was going on in your world the first time you joined Normal 40 or posted or shared?
this was before I even joined Normal 40. I probably shared I was sharing your information on your posts on LinkedIn. And this was after, I don't know, what was it, 2022 when you started posting?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly right.
So it was after COVID. I lost my job at the Iowa Clinic during COVID due to a reorg, went to another job in hospice, and I liked the job itself. The management was just horrible. I told my wife after 6 months, I'm done. She gave me her blessing. I left there, was out of a job for a while, and then found another job. I think I just rambled myself off to what you just asked me, what I was posting.
No, just what was going on? What was going on
Yeah.
in your world?
Yeah.
This feeling intensifies. I don't need to tell you that, but if the listener is wondering what this is and resonates, the feeling of knowing you've got a better dance, one more dance, something more. And you would set yourself up. I'm just repeating back what you said. You and Heidi had set yourselves up to be able to retire at 55. You were at 55. COVID throws a wrench into things. You decide you don't want to be done, even though you could be, because you just felt incomplete. You feel like there's one more big dance here. And sometimes we don't know what it is. We don't know even what it looks like. We just know it isn't more of what we've already been doing, but there's parts of it that we want to take with us to do something more. And so my question with all that background was just trying to dial into what is it you were feeling? Were you hoping to be done? Were you hoping to sink your teeth into something that became your own thing? Just kind of what was going on?
Yeah. A lot of things were going through my head. There's so many things going through my head that I didn't know what it was. Yeah, I could be done. Can I find something? I don't know what it is, but can I find something and start a business that I could pull my boys into and we I can get it started and then let them run with it in the future. Is it something like that? I just didn't know what it was. It could have been working. I gave myself not an ultimatum, but I said I could do this job that I'm working in another 3 years, put me at 58 and call it quits then and ride off in the sunset. And something comes up between now and then. I don't know what that may be, but then I could step into that and run with it. But I just, like everybody else that gets on the Normal 40, just didn't know what that was.
You just described all of us. I went back Chris, and I found what was the first thing you wrote, not to me, but posted in the community. And it's not even the insider community where you hang out now. It was just the speakeasy, the free community in LinkedIn. And I'm going to read it. And this goes back almost 1 year. So this goes back to April of 25. And your first three words are, I'm a helper. I've been in healthcare in some shape or form my whole professional life. In fact, 32 years. I started in patient care and moved to business development for the majority of my career. Helping people, whether it be a patient, provider, or corporation, is who I am and it's what I do. It's my why in both my career and in my life. As I continue down the road I'm on, I have a strong sense that my why is missing something. Is it something bigger, something more profound, maybe something smaller or simpler? Is it something in my current role, or am I being called to something somewhere else? Is it a trade? If so, what does a trade look like for me? All I know is that it's pulling on me harder and harder every day, and I pray that when the time is right, the trade will present itself to me. Do you know, or did you know, what your trade was like? That was your note to me, and then we engaged from there. That was in April of 25. You were wrestling with the best chapter of your life. And I love your own words that you use here. They're actually simple and accurate. No wonder you're a journalism major. But you were talking about this pull, and while you can't define it, you know what it feels like. You know what it feels like. And you describe how it's pulling harder and harder every day. And then you pray when the time is right, you'll know and you'll muster the courage to chase it. And that started you and I into a conversation. And then a few months later, a dose of reality hit you. And I want you to take me from this post into what happened in the last year of your life, right up to the present. And then I kind of want to spend some time just talking about you, who you were, what was important, and what you learned in the last year, who you've become, and what's important now. So I'll break that back down. Just go ahead and take us back to this thing that I just read, the note you wrote, and then bring us sequentially through last summer into current time.
Yep. So last fall, September, I wasn't feeling good. And I was really, actually feeling really bad. Back in 2019, I got sepsis. Don't know how. They never figured it out when my organs were failing and about took my life. So I was kind of feeling that way in September. And I said, I'm not waiting around this time because I waited around last time and things just got worse. I'm getting to the doctor. So I went to the doctor, went to the ED. They did a scan, said I had a small bowel obstruction, kept me in the hospital a couple of days, and then sent me home. A good month went by and I was still feeling the same and not feeling good. And I'm like, I can't wait on this. I'm going to call my general practitioner and figure out what's going on. And went in and told her, I said, something's not right. So she ordered another scan for that day. I went and got that done. The next morning she called me and she told me that I need to pack my bags and get to the hospital so they could do some more testing on me. The scans show that I've got cancer. So went to the hospital. There's my trade right there. That was the trade. I was done thinking about what my why was in the professional world. My why then, and always has been, me and my family. But that's what it is now. So long story short, went through some tests and they found colon cancer and it had spread to my abdominal lining. So they staged it as stage 4 colon cancer. They hoped it. I had two hopes at that time. One, that it was genetic, a certain genetic mutation, that I could be treated with immunotherapy and probably live a happy life and be cured. The other one was that it's going to be chemo for life in battling this disease. And that's what it ended up being. So since October, I've been in this fight with colon cancer, doing chemo every 2 weeks. You go in on a Wednesday for about 3.5 to 4 hours, and they give me immunotherapy, anti-nausea meds, one round of chemo, and then the second round of chemo is put into a pump that I take home with me and wear that pump till Friday and go Friday and get that pump off and start again in 2 weeks. So that's where I've been the last 6 months, is trying to figure this out and figure out a way to beat this. But that's where my trade happened. I retired. Leading up to this, with losing my parents early, I've always tried to sit back and pull out the good things in the day. If we're with a group of people, just people are talking back and forth, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And just me sitting back and taking good things from those conversations. But this has really amped that up even more, to enjoy all those small things, the little things every day that we are able to be here on earth.
Can we go back to day one when you got a call from your family practice doc? And I want to know, kind of just walk me through that. But I want you to include where Heidi was in the conversations too. And just walk me through that first 24 hours.
Yeah. So when I got that call, it was Thursday morning, early. I was actually still sleeping. And so I got the voicemail. It was a voicemail that I got from my doctor. And she didn't tell me at that point what was going on, but said I needed to call her. So I made that call and found that out. And
Did you have any inclination? Was this a total shock, or was a part of you kind of in denial for what it could be?
no, it was a total shock to me. I've got a family history of colon cancer. That's what my mom died of. Her sister had colon cancer, beat it. But with that being said, when in 2019, when I had that sepsis going on, I had my first colonoscopy then, and they found polyps and took polyps out. One of them was precancerous. The number of polyps that they saw, they said, with your family history, you need to be getting this done every 3 years. So I was getting my colonoscopies every 3 years, and I was due last year at this time to have my colonoscopy done. And so, yeah, this floored me. I thought I had colon cancer checked off the list of things that are going to beat me in life. It was going to be something else because I was doing what I needed to be doing. So this floored me. And I got that phone call, took a deep breath, and I think I immediately went into that time in fifth grade, that time in eighth grade with the fights, and went into fight or flight mode. And I was in fight mode. So it sunk in. I knew what I had going on, but and up until now, I'm determined to beat this. They haven't told me how, but I'm fighting, determined to beat this. The conversation with Heidi was pretty quick, and because we packed a bag up to head to the hospital, and it was a quiet ride, but went to the hospital. They did some more testing. Said they wanted to do a colonoscopy again on me. And that's when they went in, and that's where they could actually see the tumors. And that was on the next day on Friday. And again, I was immediately in fight mode then. I'm not sure that I shed a tear then. I just immediately went into fight mode. I called people important to me in my life and told them what was going on, and told them what was ahead and what we needed to do. So there's been tears shed since then. I'll admit that, but I'm still in fight mode and will continue to be.
How have you changed? And just the core of what's important for you. How does an experience like this alter that?
For me, having this diagnosis, there's not a day goes by that I don't think about cancer. It's always at front of mind. I try and get past that during the day and find the good things in the day. One of the things you had told me early on is that, and this is in regards to the Normal 40 group, was that I've got a platform that, at least at that point, nobody had in the group. And what that platform is, he said I needed to figure that out. So I've kind of And then I've had a couple other people tell me the same thing, that I've been given a platform. So I'm not a big person on posting stuff on social media, but I am now. My journey's out there and it can get raw at times, but I'm sharing that with people on social media. People love my videos. They love the rawness of them. And I have people tell me quite often that I am not just affecting them, but a lot more people that I'm affecting with this. So I'm trying to use, like you said, use this as a stage. And that stage may change. That's my stage right now. It's not just about my journey. It's about my faith. I talk about my faith in the videos. I talk about loving one another. Just in people in my shoes, living one day at a time, enjoying the day. And as we get older, we realize that I'm 55 years old, and that was part of my thing with the trade. It's I got to enjoy every day. And how am I going to do that? Because my days are numbered. Even before this diagnosis, I've lived more life than I'm going to live the rest moving forwards. That's what I try and work on, not only with myself, but with others around me with this diagnosis.
Hey everyone, thank you once again for listening to Normal 40 the podcast. Look, there's a reason why this podcast is going to get downloaded thousands of times. And there's a reason why thousands of people show up to what I write and what we share. And there's a reason why hundreds of you join me on The Insider. The Insider is a community that I thought was going to be a place for me to show up and teach and coach. But what it's become is a fan base for people who are ready to get started. It's a place to connect to the people you're going to need for the best decade of your life. And it's the most affordable community, most valued community that I can offer. And I show up in there at least twice a month. And we do live events and have special guests. And I even record podcasts in there from time to time. So look, go to normal40.com, join the Insider, check it out for yourself, and do yourself a favor. Let's be up to something. All right, I'm going to get back to the podcast. So I want you to think back to you of 2024. What advice does today Chris do you give Chris of 24 and 48 months ago?
And I know I can go several different directions with that.
Take them all,
like
baby.
I said, we saved to retire at 55. My oldest boy down in Florida, he's the total opposite of us. He's our free child. He's living the opposite. He spent time in doing the van life and lived in Vegas for a while and lived in Hawaii for a year and a half. And now he's in Florida and did that by the skin of his teeth, really not taking any jobs, but just enjoying life. So the old saying, or the saying that the kids say, YOLO, you only live once. I can look back at younger me and say, maybe not save so hard, enjoy some things now. But we decided to start a family, so that would have changed things as well too. But yeah, enjoy life. One thing that made me good at my job, dealing with physicians and their egos, sometimes egos, not all of them have egos, but some of them do, is had to be like water off a duck's back. And I would say that in life in general too. Just don't stress over the stuff. If you can't fix it, move on. Be like water off a duck's back and just let it go. Don't stress about it.
I want to make a comment that may or may not be helpful, and then I'm going to move into a question. But look, by the way, there's a big part of me who's really admires your free-spirited son. And I think there's a part of you that does too. There's a part of all of us that can admire that on one hand. And then the mature, professional Gen X person in us kind of says, yeah, but you got to buckle down at some point. You got to make a living. You got to, yeah. And that's true. That is true. And this YOLO, you only live once mantra, I get what it means, but it's not exactly true. You actually get to live 10,000 times. You get every day you wake up can be a new chance to live. You really only die once. And as you can give yourself permission as the world changes what your future may be looking like, but you boil it back into the individual day of You only live once today.
Or this second.
That's right. And it's what you were talking about with what you value now. And you're waking up, and what I wrote down, you said, I pull I love how you said it. I pull out the good things in a day. And then you created this visual of just being so present that you didn't have to be in the conversation just to appreciate that you were present for the conversation. And man, what incredible, there was just, it resonated with me. There's a lot of wisdom in that. And we can all, that's a different sort of present. You can be present and engaged and into the conversation and trying to be the guy. And you can be the sort of present where all you do is notice everyone else and how they're presenting themselves in the situation and take that in. And that's a totally different form of presence. And it's beautiful. And so anyway, I'm kind of going off on YOLO and presence, but dude, I think every day we get to wake up and live again. The other thing I want to say, and this is me reflecting back, and I said off the top that this is the first time you and I have talked one-on-one, but that you've been a member of our insider community for probably 18 months. I think you joined pre-diagnosis and were involved. And I remember you even saying once in an early conversation that you're in VD, you had read the trade. I'd encourage you to read The Alchemist. You said you read it, and then you read The Go-Giver, and you said, I'm not even a reader, and I read 3 books in the last week. Something's going crazy here. And so you're involved in these conversations. And I went back and I found the conversation where I learned about your diagnosis. And it was a conversation that happened late last year. Maybe it was early this year. I actually think it was February of this year. So we'll just say 90 days ago. And so that was 90 days-ish after your diagnosis. And we had been spending time in the Insider, in our community, talking about the journey, right? This journey we all go through. And we'd started notionally in the end of last year talking about what's your superpower. And then we talked about how do each of us define freedom? It's one thing to say, yeah, we want a life that gives us more freedom. But if we don't define it, we're missing the point. We will never know what we're chasing. So defining freedom. And then this awareness that you talked about in your note that you sent me, and you talked about on this podcast with something is calling me. There's a calling. There's something more. I know I'm supposed to do more than this. And before your diagnosis, you were using those terms and you were building this awareness. There was this awareness in you starting to come alive. We were talking about that. And the next step in the process we talked about around the time, now we're talking into early January, we talked about the brutal reality of you. And then I started talking about second resume. And second resume, for those of you who don't know, is something you're going to learn a lot about. I've written about it a couple of times. It's been in my newsletter a couple of times, and I'm putting it in my next book. And the second resume is exactly what it sounds like. Because you can go to my LinkedIn profile, Chris, or I can go to yours, or we can go to anybody else's, and we can read everyone's resume. You can go to mine and see that I'm a farm kid who went to work for a United States Senator, who went to work in finance, who became a public company executive, who quit and launched Normal 40. That's what I want you to know about me. First resume. I can go to yours and see you go to college and then start down one path and then transition and then get to healthcare and business development and then retire. And I can see your path. But on your second resume, there's something else. There's cancer. There's sepsis. There's this fight you got into in 5th and 8th grade. There's this good and bad and happy and sad that happened in your journey through business development that built you. And me too, by the way. Me too, all over the place, but we don't talk about it. It's second resume stuff. But it's the things of the second resume that build you and prepare you for the best work of your life. And it was in that conversation when I was asking people, what's on your second resume? What's on your second resume? And we're kind of going around the horn and we get to Chris Bertrand and I say, what's in your second resume? And you tell us. I was diagnosed a few months ago with stage 4 cancer. And you had everyone's attention for all the reasons you didn't want to have it. But you had it. And all of us in that moment knew we were going to learn something from you. And we wanted you to have the floor and to keep it and to talk. Not, yes, probably because you needed to, but damn it, we were getting something. We were learning. We're like, this is what an incredible lesson and perspective that Chris has that he can share with us. And you did. And you have in a few conversations since then. And so this is a long way of me kind of circling back to this second resume and this platform that, dude, I'm so inspired by the fact that you are leaning into it. That this isn't the platform you wanted. 3 years ago, you weren't saying, boy, I hope I get to talk about surviving stage 4 cancer. This isn't what anybody asks for, and you didn't. But you're using your second resume and you're impacting me. I can give you an example on this very phone call, how you've impacted me, and let me do that. 3 years ago, I went and I was just about to turn 50. That was 2 years ago. I was just about to turn 50. I went and got my colonoscopy and I had polyps. One of them was precancerous. I'm supposed to go in every 3 years, which means that in a year from now, in the next year, I'm supposed to go in. I'm going to reach out. I'm not waiting. I'm going to reach out. And my wife has been telling me to not wait either. No symptoms, no nothing, but I'm going to reach out because you're sharing your story, dude. And I am just thankful that you're grabbing that mantle. What do you want if you just had a megaphone and you could just yell it and everybody in the world could hear it? What would you love to just yell that you just want people to know with the perspective you've got?
Again, I could go a couple directions with that. One, I'll go back to what you just said, advocate for yourself. If it doesn't feel right, advocate for yourself. And it sounds like you're doing that. Another path I would say is continue to be who you are. And I've continued to do that. When you talk about second resume and how I said early on that I was a helper, one of the things that I've done since this diagnosis is go in every 2 weeks for chemotherapy. And those nurses that are in the infusion center are some of the best people in the world. But they ask you multiple times while you're there, do you need a warm blanket? You want something to eat or drink? And it's just the eat and drink stuff is just a pop and some bag snack or something like that. And I said, you know what? Summer's coming on. How about we get ice cream for all the patients to have when they're here for the summer? And the nurse says, I'll talk to my director about that. And so she finished what she was doing with me and must have went and sent an email right away. And 2 minutes later, she comes back and says, we got the go ahead for that. So I'm continuing to help people. And there's people, tons of people that go through that infusion center that ice cream is probably going to make their day at some point. And I still continue to find ways to help others. I'm told that with my social media posts, that people are like, man, with all that you're going through, you're still finding a way to help people. So yeah, just continue to be yourself, be a good person, be a good human. Look for the good in others and don't stress about the bad that comes out of people.
If you're just starting this next chapter of the book of Chris Bertrand, what's the title of this chapter going to be?
Driven. Um, there's more chapters ahead.
So the second resume, we'll wrap it up with this. The second resume that you've been given and you're choosing to use, what do you want to do with it? How do you want to use it? And what do you want it to do for others?
Still trying to figure out how I want to use it. And that goes back to starting with the normal 40, trying to figure out what I'm going to do next and how I'm going to use it. I think what I've been doing so far, I think I've been using it well. I'm opening eyes. So what was the second half of that question?
Oh man,
My mind's just turning.
no, you nailed it. You nailed it. Let's. I want to reiterate, just repeat back something you said for second resume and what's important. And you said, when I asked you kind of what do you want to, what's most important to you now on Second Resume? And you said, advocate for yourself, be who you are, be helpful, eat ice cream is essentially what it says. And then be a good human. Talk about some incredible rules for life. And look, dude, I love that you don't know how yet, but you know what. One of the things that we talk a lot about is when you know what you need to do next, how you do it becomes natural. And this podcast is just a how. It's an experiment for your how. But your what is becoming more and more and more clear. Your what is to advocate for yourself and encourage others to advocate for yourselves. Your what is to help you be who you are so others can be who they are. Your what is to be helpful and ask others to be helpful at the same time. Your what is to let people eat ice cream when they should just be eating ice cream. And your what is to be a good human and insist that other people are good human. And the how you do that is going to be different. It's going to build and grow and morph and change. It's going to be what it's going to be. And I'm not so sure, dude, that, let me just say it this way. If there's a way I can buy a round of ice cream for your people, that, dude, I want to know how to do it, because guess what? I want in on some of that action.
Did you ever get the ice cream with your wife on that date night about a month ago?
I did it the next day. Oh man, I'm so glad you asked. And the only reason being is because I was so full. I'm like, I don't want to waste great ice cream on something full. So the next day we went, and my wife reminded me actually, because I told her about the conversation. And for people who don't know, Chris did this beautiful post on our community page about, you know what? I find that in this new life I'm living, I'm eating more ice cream, and it's pretty damn good. So I replied back, I'm going to
Yep.
go eat some now, but I couldn't. I was too full. But the next day, my wife reminded me, and we went and had it. See,
I'm proud of you. Proud
you're
of you.
impacting us. Chris, dude, is there anything else you just want to offer up, share something you wish I'd asked and didn't, just anything that you want any of the listeners just to know about you, know about the journey?
Probably just in closing, I've adopted a few mantras in the last few months, and one of them is KFG, keep freaking going, or whatever you want to use in that. No matter what life throws at you, keep freaking going. Just do it. Keep freaking going. The people in the normal 40, they're at those crossroads and juggling multiple balls, trying to figure out where they're going with what they're doing, hesitant. Just do it. I know a lot of that comes up to a financial situation too, but if your gut and your heart's leading you there, do it. I believe in my gut. When my gut talks to me, it's usually correct. So don't be afraid. Keep freaking going.
I have one more question.
Okay. Fire away.
In the note you sent to me before your diagnosis, you referenced something was pulling at you. From where you sit today, do you know what it was?
No, I was still on that journey. And then my journey changed. And it was probably God pulling me to where I'm at right now, giving me this challenge and seeing how I face it.
How do people follow along? I know you talked about posting on social and some of those things. How do people, if they just want to learn more, tag along, connect with you even, how do they find you?
You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn. I don't do, at this point, I'm not doing much with my diagnosis on LinkedIn. I've always viewed LinkedIn as a business community instead of a what about my life community. But I even get on TikTok, and I've learned there's some crazy stuff on there. But you know what? I've learned a lot in the last few months on a social media site called TikTok. And again, throw away the bad, but take the good from it. And I've learned quite a few good things off of there. People's life experiences that they share. And I've tried to share some on there as well.
Dude, I'm not even on TikTok. Now you're pushing me again.
Beware.
I
Beware. There's some
know.
rabbit holes you could go down, but there's some good stuff on there too.
Dude, Chris, thank you so much for sharing your story with me and with us, and for being so open, and for being a member of our community, and just for being one of the good guys, man.
Yeah. I thank you. I thank you for all your support through all this. I thank you for leading me to the normal 40. What, 3, 4 years ago? It's been, what's 2026, 22? It's been 4 years when I started this journey following you. I admire you for what you do. I admire you for what you're doing and looking at doing in the future. You are someone that a lot of people see themselves in you, and your hope for a lot of people just with your journey and where you're at right now. So continue to be you and do what you're doing.
I promise I will, man. And like we said off the top, one day you and I are going to meet, and that is going to be a good day. It can be in Florida, it can be in South Dakota, or it can be in Iowa. But one day
Yep.
we're going to make it happen.
It'll be sooner than later too.
I agree, man. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for sharing your
Thank you.
story. And thanks for being on the Normal 40 Highway, dude.
Thanks, Lon.
Hey, everyone, that's going to do it for another episode of Normal 40, the podcast. I just can't believe who I get to talk to on any given day. You just got a chance to hear my first conversation with Chris Bertrand, and now you understand how incredible he is. And Chris is just one of hundreds of us who show up inside the Insider every single week, and we share our story. We share our story so that we can build upon our story, so that we can use our story to help others and use our stories to build what's next. Chris didn't ask for the story he's got, but how he's using it and the people he's already influenced, the people he's already impacted just by sharing his story inside of my little community, now inside of this larger podcast. And I can't wait to see what happens next. Everyone's got a story. Everyone assumes that their story doesn't have the ability to impact someone else. Everyone assumes that their story is just for them, that nobody really wants to hear it, that nobody can really learn from it. And I'm here to remind you that no matter what your story is, somebody needs it. Somebody's praying for it. Somebody's literally asking to be connected with you. And so long as you don't tell your second resume, as long as you don't speak up and tell your story, not for self-promotion, but to be connected with the person who needs you, the longer you wait on that, the longer somebody's waiting for you. So my challenge for you as you rotate out of this podcast into whatever you do next, start telling your story. If you need a way to tell it, if you need somebody to help you pull it out of you, ramble with me. Book a call. It's what I do. All right, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being on the Normal 40 Highway. Thank you, Chris, for being you. And I'm going to see all of you on the podcast.